Hello, Fausty Witch.
Oh yeah.
So,
Are you gonna calm down now?
I am calm. I am a picture
Good.
of tranquil calm. Do I need to go like that and sit cross-legged for you to realise this, Chris?
No,
Or
you'll be fine.
do I simply just need to stop swearing?
You need to stop swearing, yes.
Well, I haven't said a single swear word all
Yet.
Fausty Witches show.
We haven't made a minute yet.
Podcast
We're
is
not a
all
minute
in.
in. And the first 10 seconds was intro music.
Yes, hence why I haven't said fuck, piss, shit, or the C word, which we all know to be cunt.
Oh my God.
Those with a sensitive disposition may not watch the Fausty Witches show. You may not wish to watch it, but you certainly aren't allowed to watch it. Okay? Always practice safe hacks and make sure to check out the thothwitchcraft.com website. Everything we do say, will say, and have ever said is not sanctioned by the Keep On Chatting network. They do not share our opinion. Blah, blah, blah. Is that about all of the disclaimers I need to put?
Yeah, I think that's all the disclaimers you need.
For entertainment purposes only. Mainly our entertainment. But we also like to think yours also.
I think most of them are entertained most of the time. So hi to you all. So what are we talking about this week, Liam?
I think we need to talk about that I bought a new phone, right? Because my old phone is broken, right? It's completely broken. If I switch it on, that's what happens. Look, yeah. Apple, in order to set up the Apple phone, they text you a code to activate your phone. However, they text you the code. So I need to get the text message to input the code to set up the device, but I cannot get a text message until the device is set up. What fucking idiot came up with that one? Because let's be fair, I can't be the only idiot out there that broke their phone instead of just upgrading to another phone, right?
You finished?
Well,
do you know what I'm going to say about
as soon as I start a cursing and hex them? Because like everyone knows about transmutation of energy, it's not good to sieve, and boil over with rage. Instead, take that rage and channel it into something, productive. Some people channel it into productive workout routines to make them better, faster, stronger. Other people channel it into art and stuff like that. I like to channel mine into curses that fuck people up I don't like. But although this is a Fausty Witches show, today we're not talking curses. What's today's topic, Chris?
Oh, haunted dolls in it.
Haunted dolls in it. Now, is there a haunted doll in it? Or
potentially.
Is it just a doll? What is in it?
In it. What is in it?
Yeah.
Anyway, before I say that, I just wanted to give you food for thought about Macintosh and their logo being an apple, and the apple happens to be missing a bite. Does that look familiar?
What?
No.
What are you chatting about?
Apple's missing a bite.
Right.
Yeah?
Yeah.
One-eyed wonder?
Right. That's not
He's missing a bite too, isn't he?
That's Does the one-eyed wonder want to become a no-eyed wonder? Do you think? Because I'm starting to think it does.
I'm kind of thinking it does. I was talking to the Rune Master about it yesterday.
What does the Rune Master have to say?
Well, the Rune Master's just happy that he's bugging somebody else other than him. But I was saying more across the thought line of, we don't normally get involved in this sort of shit. So,
but I did jump in publicly and defended said Rune Master from said one-eyed wonder.
perhaps
So I involved myself beyond what I normally would. So really, one could say it's my fault, but still, one can only cope with so much before one goes crazy and plucks out the other eye.
Yeah. Well, this is what I said. This is what I said to Rune Master. Really, was the fact that actually, if he wants to play those sorts of games, then it's a very different game altogether. We probably should stop there and carry on talking about Fausty Witches. So, I just thought that actually the symmetry is there. What was it in it?
Haunted dolls, is there anything in it?
Well, it depends on the haunted doll.
How does one tell if there's something in it?
It depends which ones. Well, don't you have to have one of those special bleepy machines with the little flashy lights?
What the Winchester brothers have?
Yeah, EMF or whatever it is.
Yeah, electromagnetic frequency, a bobbly thing, which you can buy from eBay, which is made out of an old radio or something, I think, in it.
Okay, I don't know. I don't know the first thing about them. That's why I'm kind of like, you people can tell us about it and we'll talk about that. So questions, send them and we'll talk about them. But essentially, we're going to talk about the magical implications of haunted dolls and how you can actually make them. I think that was the plan, right?
Sure, why not? So if you've got a haunted doll, or technically any old haunted object, but we'll go with a haunted doll because it's the most stereotypical thing we can come up with. And it's all about the stereotypes on television and that, isn't it? So, haunted doll, obviously, if it's haunted, presumably to fall under the category of haunted doll, it needs to be haunted by something, i.e., a spirit of some description needs to be tethered to said doll in some way, shape, or form. Now, whether it's a fixed tether so that that thing cannot escape, or whether it's just merely a tentacle that it wraps around to get a foothold on the physical world, who knows? It might have multiple tentacles in multiple places, right? So we're not necessarily saying it's trapped there. It could potentially be a haunted doll and the thing come and go as and when it wants. But ultimately, there's a sentience behind the doll. So which one did you want to go for? What do you think the most stereotypically one that you would see on a paranormally kind of show would be?
Well, most of them are just creepy porcelain things that freak me the fuck out.
So not
without being
just
haunted.
Creepy looking.
Yeah, creepy looking. Missing eyes and shit, or half a head missing, and like I don't know if they just think I'm creeped out by it and miscommunicate that as there's something wrong with it. Whereas I think most of it for me is it's a creepy doll and I don't like them.
Do children freak you out?
No.
Okay.
Even those black-eyed ones, I quite like those. They're sweet.
You like black-eyed children?
Yeah, they're sweet.
What about the black-eyed peas?
I'm not so keen on them. I don't mind Fergie.
Right, anyway.
But Will-I is not impressed.
Right. The concept of the haunted doll that you would see paranormal lot going on about on paranormal television program. Now, we have the category of spirits, right? So what type of spirit is attached to it? How much money would you put on the fact that most of the ones that appear on paranormal television shows weren't haunted until after they started going on the shows, i.e. Tulpa?
Yeah, potentially.
So where do you want to start? Do you want to start with dead people? Do you want to start with other things? Do you want to start with egregores, tulpas, and the like? Which makes the most sense?
I think we start with dead people first because they're the ones they expect the answer to be,
Okay.
and then we'll move on to what answers they really should be.
Okay. So dead people, they're alive and then they die. So the physical tether, gone. The old power station that keeps them here, gone. So what happens? Start to dissolve away, yeah? In order to kind of cling to the world, then often they'll attempt to cling to something. So dead people we're talking about. We ain't talking about all of this ghost stuff, the idea of looking at something that has happened and just repeats itself. We're talking about an actual sentient spirit, albeit it will probably behave much like a old person in a care home with dementia, but still is technically a sentient spirit of a dead person. And he is essentially trying to maintain a connection with the physical world, and it does that by latching onto something. Very often they'll latch onto the parts of themselves, so bodies and the like. We've seen them latch onto just generally human skulls and like anything that it can see as a body or it can identify as a body tends to latch onto. And dolls, very often, it's easy for things to latch onto stuff that's got its own DNA. So when you see these ideas of you've got I don't know, a doll that's been made with real human flesh. Sorry, no, we're not allowed to do that anymore, are we? A doll that's been made out of real hair and it's got like fingernails and stuff like that. There's an old ventriloquist dummy that was actually made out of the nails and hair and all that of, I think, some dead person. And he said that the person haunts the ventriloquist doll because you've got that connection there. It can essentially latch on like an anchor. But what about when there is no kind of blood, guts, DNA, and biologicals? Why does it pick a doll?
Well, I suppose the ones I find really creepy are obviously the porcelain ones, which obviously, depending on the type of porcelain, will mean that part of that is bone ash, which is why we call it bone china. And therefore, there is actual animal bone in the process of making porcelain. So you kind of like, well, at least traditional types of porcelain are probably not nowadays. But so, there is what we talk about vessels and things naturally holding energy. Something that has held life often makes a very good vessel for dead life.
Yeah.
So the transference is quite simple.
If it's a human bone, then it makes sense that human life that was once part of that human bone makes sense that those things might be linked or be an easy link, I suppose. So does this happen by accident, or is this most of the time something that's done on purpose, either by the spirit or by a magical practitioner of some description?
Was that a question?
Yes. I'll put a question mark at the end. There you go.
Okay. It just felt more like a statement. So sorry, repeat the question because I was too busy saying it's a question.
The haunted dolls that contain dead people spirits,
yes.
Are they most of the time, do you think, accidentally created, or do you think they're mostly purposefully made by a magical practitioner of some description?
Most of them that I've heard about seem to be accidental. Personally, I don't think crafting a haunted doll is particularly a useful kind of practice. So, which is kind of why I'm thinking most of them will be accidental transference of energy.
But is that only in the variety of the dead people haunting? dolls.
Yeah,
Because when
the
you think
dead
of the
people ones.
protective egregore type dolls, like they used to do, that makes
Yeah,
sense personally to me, you know.
yeah.
So it's just
But
the
the
dead
dead people
people ones.
ones, why
Right,
would
okay.
why would you keep a dead person's spirit around? It's not particularly useful.
Well, you don't like people, so I understand why you wouldn't want to keep any of them around. But in general, some people do.
No, I mean, as in they don't have, without prior knowledge, so, kind of witch dead people, of actually understanding how being dead works, and therefore how manipulating energy while dead from that aspect in the physical is tricky. So, unless, just Joe Blogg's granddad dying, putting him in a doll seems pretty pointless, because obviously, other than feeling his presence, you're not go while he slowly degrades away.
Well, if
Isn't
you don't,
really.
and you're a magical practitioner, you might see it as life support. So you might see it
I
as
suppose.
we'll find Grandad Blogs another body, but in the meantime, we'll stick him in the doll. So just keep him in the doll for now, and then I'll
Yeah,
find you Grandad. Grandad, I'll find you a new body, and you can help me peck. How's that? But again, that's not something that you see a lot about on the paranormally stuff. So I suppose accidental wise is a case of, oh shit, I've died. What am I doing now? I better cling on to this. I'll cling on to whatever I can get a hold on to.
and the doll just happens to be the closest
And
thing.
the doll happens to be the easiest thing. Because personally, if I'm honest, I mean, most of the haunted dolls and that often tend to be tulpas nowadays.
Mm.
And then you might find a couple of egregores and that. But, I don't really see a huge amount of haunted dolls as in haunted by human spirits. Yes, there are a shitload of them out there that are spirits haunting dolls that pretend to be dead people, but not necessarily a huge amount of the real thing. Partly because there's easier storage
Yeah,
facilities, I
more
suppose, for
effective
that.
storage methods
Yeah.
than dolls.
So have we covered about dead people haunting dolls? Because it's probably the most boring type of haunted doll.
Definitely, definitely. But it's just one of those ones that people go to, I suppose, because that's their field of vision, isn't it,
Mm.
for what's out there that isn't human or isn't alive. So therefore, I suppose the jump is always to the, um, dead peoples.
So we can dispense with the dead people because they've already been dispensed with, technically, because they're
Yeah.
dead. For the rest of the show, then, and just talk about more exciting types of dolls.
Okay, let's do that then.
So let's talk about kind of the origin of dolls in general, because you've got some stories and such that you could tell about dolls being made for children, essentially, can't you? And babies and that,
Yeah.
and
So
them being used as magic for magical
yes.
reasons.
So the original kind of European rag dolls, anyway, come from a tradition of making making dolls as protective totems for small children. Obviously,
Mm.
because in the times that we're talking about, infant fatality was,
Mm.
high. So the likelihood of a small child surviving long enough to make adulthood, you kind of wanted to make more effort to keep them alive. So, the midwife or whatever you would call them at that point, would kind of, help you make little rag dolls that would obviously be in the child's image,
Mm.
and would normally be made from bits of hair and other parts would be made from those things. So, if you had a particularly hairy child, they would take the hair in order to make the connection to the doll there. So you would have a small doll that obviously had hair that looked like you and was actually made from your hair, and obviously then it would be in the crib or hanging on the crib. And therefore, child would play with it as they got bigger, and that bond would continue too. And often these sorts of dolls are the ones that end up being the haunted ones, because they kind of take upon a life of their own, kind of imaginary, children's imaginary friends, and that sort of stuff.
A lot of energy
Kind of
gets
build
fed
that
into
bond.
it.
Yeah.
So they work a lot like a witch bottle, technically, then, as a defensive mechanism, and could potentially be a decoy. If you've got two dolls in the crib, one of them's kind of shining energy, the other one's just like, what is that? Then a spirit or something might be attracted to the one that's easiest to get to. Maybe.
Yeah. And therefore,
potentially, that's interesting. But yeah, I mean, also technically, if you're thinking about that kind of thing, the attachment and the feeding of the energy into that, what are you aware of there being any actual practices in terms of what they would do when the child grows up? Would it be something that gets retained, or would it be something that gets thrown away, or what? Because obviously nowadays they have heirlooms and stuff like that can be quite expensive. Teddy bears passed down, China dolls, all that sort of thing passed down. But if you were growing up as a child, do you think you'd expect to keep that doll? Because we don't really find a huge amount of them retained, do we?
No, the ones that tend to be retained tend to be the ones where the child eventually died. So, it kind of becomes a kind of very Victorian kind of method of keeping the child afterwards, if that makes sense. They go on and have further children, but that, I can never remember the phrase, the Latin one, memori something or other. But yeah, as this kind of macabre keeping, particularly because original hair and whatever would have been used, and obviously bodily fluids of the small child licking and dribbling on it and things, has a tendency to be kept. But yeah, you don't hear of many dolls that were traditionally made that way. I think lots of people keep kind of, this was the dolly that I played with, but they weren't this kind of doll, the actual made with hair and whatever of the child. Whereas the ones that seem to survive now are either the ones, like I say, that are of dead children, or kind of family heirlooms, which are a little bit different.
Okay, how good is that form of protection, though, realistically? I mean, it's not the sort of thing a magical practitioner with any experience is likely to do. Kind of like the whole witch bottle thing is quite.
No, it's
do it
folk
yourself.
Practice.
Yeah, do it yourself.
It's very folk practice.
Hmm.
I don't think we're talking, when I say midwife, I mean generally, I mean midwife. So I mean someone that would have been kind of known for delivering babies, not necessarily when we talk about the cunning woman. So not really talking about local magical practitioner. Midwives have been around for a long time, and coexist with witches, in the sense that we talk about them. They'd be the one that you'd probably have as a midwife if you weren't being very successful, had a few cot deaths or whatever. That's when you're going to go and speak to the local cunning woman and take her on as your midwife. Otherwise, you're not going to really have need of her services, shall we say.
So have you ever drummed up work from clients by murdering their offspring so that they then come to you for what? Essentially,
No.
They're paying you protection money, aren't they? Is this some kind of witch's racket, like the mafia?
I haven't, no.
No?
I've done similar things with husbands, but not with children, no.
So fully grown babies?
Fully grown babies.
Okay.
They won't separate from their mummies.
Right. So that's kind of the idea, really, with the protection stuff, the dolls for the children, that kind of thing. Now, dolls are creepy, and anything that's a little bit creepy, magical practitioners are often used for fun. And haunted dolls and the concept of fun, I don't know how old that is. I see it more and more and more now that haunted dolls are a creepy thing on social media and on television and in films and, pop culture in general. The fact that someone writes a book about a haunted doll, someone does a film about a haunted doll, and then hundreds of other books and films and TV series about haunted dolls come out, and then a bunch of magical practitioners think, well, this seems like a really good idea. I've never really thought of that, but I might as well do it. Self-fulfilling prophecy, maybe, with
Yeah,
regards to haunted dolls.
but also, how many of these kind of haunted dolls on eBay and whatever are just, basic witches putting a little bit of energy in there that would read off on an EF meter? It wouldn't even need to be a proper haunting, would it really?
No.
To trick
Storage
some of this
device.
technology?
A battery.
A battery, it just needs to hold even, a small energy for a couple of, 10 years or whatever. It's not a massive amount of energy to hand over to a doll. So I don't know whether or not how many of these people would actually go to real effort to making a haunted doll. Because let's face it, if we were going to go to the effort of making a haunted doll, it's not going to be a haunted doll, is it? We're going to, give it over to some demon or something, because that would be fun.
If you were to go about making a something haunted, what would it be? And what are you more likely to make haunted than a doll?
Jewelry.
Jewelry.
Jewelry's my go-to.
The hauntings obviously go hand in hand with people kind of thinking that it's a bad haunting, something scary, blah, 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 blah. So if you're talking about practical jokes, and I know what to give Aunt Susan for Christmas, who's a fucking nightmare. You can't ever think what to buy her, and she's a pain in the ass and no one likes her, but you got to get her something. I'll make her a haunted doll because she collects China cats, so she can just have a haunted doll as well. Realistically, obviously, what I'd more likely do to fuck her up is create a haunted cat, because that's something she collects and she'll cherish it. So the idea really, if you were to make something haunted, surely you're going to want to haunt something or make something that is not something that stands out. You want something in the room to be, okay, what have we got? We've got a bookshelf and it's got some books on it. We've got a creepy haunted doll there. There's a mirror there. There's a creepy painting there. Rose quartz crystal and iPhone charger. Which is the one that you're going to make haunted if you're really wanting it to be undetected, right? You're not probably going to pick the ones that people automatically think are, yeah, that's the haunted thing. You're going to pick something a little bit, But that's if you have sinister intent, isn't it?
Oh, I definitely wouldn't use rose quartz for haunting. But, there's nothing wrong with my rose quartz. I suppose the iPhone charger is a brilliant idea. I hadn't thought of that.
But the problem is it won't work for a long period of time.
No,
Apple
but if you
their fucking phone chargers and you throw them out,
yeah,
so it's not going to be an heirloom, is it?
There is that. It's not going to be an heirloom. But other than Bibles, I think Bibles are great for haunting. But the iPhone charger, I was thinking kind of as in it actually plugs into a main power source. So you could really go for something there. Obviously they'd probably notice their electric bill going up, but they blame Apple. They wouldn't think about blaming you.
Yeah.
So they just think, oh, Apple's at it again. But yeah, like you say, they've got a short life though, haven't they? Kind of 3 or 4 years before you got to switch over to the new one.
I am personally, if I want to curse an object or create a haunted object that's designed to annoy a particular person or family, I'm definitely one to go for the family heirlooms. And I know with family heirlooms, it's stuff that's passed down. So it's generally old shit. and generally something with sentimental value and potentially monetary value. That's the reason I like it, because it's probably going to stay in the family, and it's too expensive for them to kind of get rid of, and it means too much. Because if you're the one that got rid of it, all the other family members will be like, you shouldn't have got rid of great-great-granddad's wind-up watch. How dare you do that? It's going to stick with the family. Whereas, as soon as they twig that it is haunted, and most of them don't, let's be fair, they'll probably get rid of it. So someone actually put something interesting, Alex. Why would someone buy a haunted doll off eBay? That just screams bad idea. So the problem is, Alex, is I think that a lot of people out there in the world are interested in the paranormal. They're interested in magic, but don't have a fucking clue about anything to do with magic or the paranormal. So they go and seek it out for fun and entertainment and the like. And going on eBay and taking the chance that you could potentially get a haunted doll when you don't really believe that haunted dolls are a thing is a bit creepy and a bit scary. And if it's on there and you bid a $5 for it, and then you end up winning it, and then it comes through the post, chances are it probably won't even be haunted. It's just someone selling a creepy doll. But it might be haunted. And then if you don't believe in the paranormal, but you want to, hashtag I want to believe, and then you get haunted, then you'll start to think, wow, this stuff really does exist. So basically, people buy haunted dolls most of the time because they're idiots that want to have a spooky paranormal experience, I think. What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, you get the skeptics that want to kind of push. And those are the skeptics that tend to be the ones that create museums of haunted dolls, because they get a bit of an addiction for it, of wanting to test and test and test. And therefore they want a collection of them so that they can test the scientific method, inverted commas.
Yeah. And they're often creepy people that can't get any friends. So if you can't get any friends and you're a bit of a weirdo, you're not really supposed to kidnap people nowadays, buy a load of haunted dolls that cannot actually escape. And then you've got all these friends, special friends, that will have to be your friend because they cannot escape you. Don't know. I think that's as good as an explanation as you were going to get.
I think you missed Alex's earlier comment.
Yeah, Alex also said, do spirits that do this because they're waiting for a human host, like small child or pregnant woman, that they can incarnate into? The idea of the Horcrux, you may have heard from Harry Potter and the like. Realistically, what a Horcrux is a tether to the world that you can act through. So if you created a Horcrux, essentially, or were successful in creating a Horcrux, what would that therefore mean was that when you died, you would be tethered to that object, and then via that object, you could then haunt that object to attach to another person, to possess another person, maybe boot them out, or just confine them in a corner of their own mind and take over. Possession, right? So yeah, there could potentially be haunted dolls that are used to do that. Again, why you would want to use a haunted doll, I'm not entirely sure why you'd want to do that.
There'd be more effective ways.
Representational magic is a very, very ancient thing, though. So if you're used to utilizing representational magic and sympathetic magic in that, you creating a puppet of yourself, a kind of mini me, a clone, that after you die, you can tether to, does make sense. And is one means that you could do that. Is it a popular means? I'm not entirely sure. I wouldn't have said it's popular, but it's certainly doable.
No, I like it. Yeah, that makes sense. But yeah, there are more effective ways of staying here and making sure incarnation happens sooner. Especially if you're going for a spirit with some actual clout rather than a dead person. There are a lot more effective ways of incarnating here that don't involve creepy dolls and having to hijack children. So yeah, which is essentially what you're talking about there. Yeah.
So have we covered tulpas? Because the idea of we've kind of covered it a little bit, pushing energy into something, but you're not trying to create life into it. But like anything, under the right conditions with the right energy, life kinds of springs up. Like if you get a glass of water and leave it, eventually it goes all moldy and life teems and that.
Yeah. I don't think we've actually explained what tulpas are, though.
Not on this
We've
one.
suggested the concept. So probably just very briefly, just saying that obviously tulpas are when normally multiple people, not just one, which is where a lot of these kind of dolls, haunted dolls, have the potential of you have a group of paranormal investigators or a group of friends that decide to buy said haunted doll or acquire said haunted doll. Their group belief in that actually being a haunted doll has the potential for a spark of life to occur when a manufactured spirit could then take place. And yeah, tulpas are normally made by group effort, not one-to-one, like egregores, which are very different.
Yeah, egregores are designed and created. So they're designed and then they're forged. Tulpas just tend to accidentally happen. So a lot of tulpas that you'll find evolve from kind of local superstitions and stuff like that. A lot of the local superstitions and folklore and that kind of thing, with people sharing stories about a particular place in the woods. Perhaps some person went trick-or-treating in the woods at night down the local park, not during Halloween season. Maybe they did it in January and someone else or a group of people happened across them and got freaked out and then told their mates, who then told their mates, who then told their mates, who then all of a sudden, all of this energy was being directed to, there's a creepy ghost that haunts the forest, right? Maybe it wasn't a ghost, maybe it was just a person, but so many people putting their energy into something actually made stuff start to happen. The idea of a tulpa, the more energy they get supplied to it, it starts to evolve. It sparks a bit of life. There's a spirit there, and then it goes on and on and on. Darren Brown did an experiment with this, which was quite good, which was called the Lucky Dog. So he just got a statue, and it was just a plain statue, and he just dumped it in a village and told everyone that it was lucky if they went and stroked it. And all of a sudden, that's what loads of people started to do. They started to stroke the lucky dog, smooth the lucky dog, and then word spread that there was a lucky dog. More people pushed the energy into it, but the people that were doing it ended up being lucky. They were winning competitions and all sorts of stuff. You know, is that a spirit? Probably not, but it is a tulpa. So that spirit, there is energy being pushed into it, but it's probably not haunted. It's not sentient. It's just energy there. From that energy, potentially in the future, with enough time and energy being put into it, then it
might have a life.
It could become essentially self-aware. Yeah, and then it would be a spirit. But most of the time, a lot of haunted objects and that wouldn't necessarily actually be haunted by something sentient. They just build up and retain energy. But there is that potential for that energy to turn into something. Any questions or anything like that, if we've breezed over something, then just let us know in the comments. But
and we'll rebreathe.
What about non-human haunted dolls that are not tulpas? Like spirits of deities and the jinn and the demons and the daemons and the diamonds and all sorts. And are diamonds a witch's best friend?
Wow.
I take it that's a no.
I just can't believe you just said that.
This is the Fausty Witches show.
Yeah, nothing's off limits.
So going off on a slight tangent, Alex says, I heard that the pagan gods of old were all accidental creations, egregores, tulpas, generated by group belief. I don't know if this is necessarily true, but it's an interesting idea. Part true, part not. Problem is, when you're talking about pagan gods,
which ones are you on about?
Which ones are you talking about? Some of them will be, some of them won't be. You know, it's one of those things. So, you know, there will be a certain amount of, I know because I've created one. We created a goddess. I'm not going to say what her name is. Saren. And fooled a bunch of people into thinking that she was real. And we started putting little social media memes out there, and there was a lot of energy being generated towards it. And then something started to evolve out of it. Little experiment that you can do at home. I highly encourage you to do that. There's a lot of people on social media that spend hours upon hours upon hours a day looking at memes. All you need to do to steal that energy is to create memes that go viral, that absorb energy into them. In this case, the meme was a fake goddess. It happened that the fake goddess we did actually tether to maybe a certain place, location, to collect the energy and then breathe life into it to help it evolve. Pagan gods, there will be some that will be tulpas, there will be some that will be egregores. There will be many pagan gods that are not gods. There will be many pagan gods that if you called it a god, it would be very offended. There will be maybe, you know, it's difficult labels, isn't it, at the end of the day?
And you're also talking about thousands of years of work. Some of them millennia, some of them millions of years, you know, where these entities have come and gone. So you've kind of got to think, actually, there is a lot of option there, a lot of variety, and one size does not fit all. So yes, if you're going to go with accidental creations, I'd think more about Santa than I would necessarily most of the pagan gods. You know,
what about the Jesus, Chris?
Jesus was a real person. We both know that.
Was Jesus a real person, or was he a fake person created by the Romans? Some people say he was a fake person created by the Romans because they've got evidence to support it. Some people say that he was a real person because they've got evidence to support that. Some people say he was the Son of God because apparently they've got evidence to support that. Obviously, not all of them are right, but they all think they're right. I don't know where I'm going with this.
Neither do I.
Hashtag Jesus.
So, no, it depends on what you're referring to. If you're referring to there was a guy called Jesus, yes, there was a guy called Jesus.
There was many of them, weren't there?
But my assumption is there are probably half a dozen, if not more, different Jesuses available on the spirit realm for you to play with. Go enjoy yourself.
But what about the corporeal idea of the Jesus that was born in a stable? You know,
well, I don't know so much about that.
It was Yeshua, not Jesus.
Okay.
The Jewish people say it was Yeshua, don't they?
Yeah.
Because it wouldn't have been called Jesus. I actually met someone last week whose actual real name is Jesus. Like, actually. They didn't change the name by default or anything. They were actually given that as their name at birth. It's on their fucking driver's license, right? I was like, wow, this is fascinating. We need to be friends so that I can say, I found Jesus finally.
Okay.
And he's my friend. We're going pub next week.
Okay.
And I can say that and not be a liar.
Okay.
I'm sure he gets that all the time.
I'm sure he does. I don't know. Maybe. Yes, no.
I don't
or
know.
You're just a freak.
I did say after I found out, I said, I'm not really a big fan of your fan club. And he was like, you really didn't get it. I thought you'd probably hear that sort of. If your name was actually Jesus, I'm sure you'd hear all sorts of shit like that all the time. But now apparently not.
No. I think that was very much a witchy joke.
Mm.
It depends on how much time he spends with witchy folk, I guess.
He struck
Okay.
me as a bit of a new agey kind of person. He had that kind of new agey look about him, which makes me
Oh,
wonder
okay.
if he, not first generation, not I'm a
Do you
new
mean
ager. The
do you
I've
mean
been
new age or do you
raised
mean
by new
hipster?
agers.
Are you sure you don't just mean
Yeah,
hipster?
hipster
Because that's
kind
not
of.
new age.
No, but it's hipster kind of thing. It's a sort of thing that I don't think that he was a new ager, but I think that he was probably raised by new agers, which also would marry
Okay.
up with why he was probably called Jesus when he was born. You know, it's the kind of thing that they probably thought was a good idea.
My first question is his name actually Jesus or is it Jesus? Is
No, it's
he, oh,
actually Jesus. It's actually Jesus.
he actually says the word Jesus?
No, it's actually Jesus. Yeah. Is it?
No,
It
as in
is
he actually pronounced it Jesus.
Jesus. Yes.
Okay.
I don't know what his last name was
Okay.
because he did
Because I
have a
was going to
last name, but I
say,
can't
like,
remember what it was.
in kind of Latin America, and it kind of there is a lot of Jesuses around. So that's why I'm asking whether or not,
It was the first name.
yes, as a first name.
Right. Well, I don't know, but it was spelt Jesus, and
No,
he
I'm not
said
asking how it was spelt. I'm asking how it was pronounced.
right. Well, you just said Jesus.
Okay. Okay. Maybe
Anyway,
it
we're
was.
going off on topic on like a tangent again. So yes, Jesus is a very common name in Latin America.
Haunted dolls.
Haunted dolls, that's what we were talking about. Yeah, that's right. Haunted dolls, but ones that are not haunted by dead people, that are not tulpas, they're
Mm-hmm.
not egregores, but they are still haunted. What up with that
Okay.
faustiest witch of them all?
Okay. I'm trying to think what you're getting at that point. So I've never met any dolls that were haunted by deities. So
What about things that are
running out
haunted
of
by force? There's a certain book that has a bit of certain
okay.
pages.
So we're talking about haunted objects then that are haunted
Well,
by
I
other
mean, that
things.
might have a couple of things in it, but I mean,
Yeah,
I
but
couldn't put those things in a
that's a
doll.
spirit trap. That's
Yeah,
different.
but people think that dolls and haunted things and stuff like that may be stuff like we've talked about the tethers and that they're trying to tether themselves. But what about things that have been forced into them? Have you ever found any dolls that had spirits forced into them? And if so, why potentially would that have happened?
I haven't. I've seen a lot of other forced into other things. But
Mm,
like I say, Bibles are quite common.
mm,
Um, books are quite common. But I think that's because once upon a time they were very. It goes back to what you were saying before about heirlooms. They were worth a lot of money, so they passed down a family.
mm.
Um, so you know trap a few funny uncles in them. That kind of makes sense. Um, but yeah, I can't think of any dolls off the top of my head that people have forcibly put. Most of them I've come across have been, which is why I consider most of them to be quite boring. Um, is that they tend to be kind of accidental. So
Mm.
I'm not so many on the forced. Although lots of haunted jewelry, lots of haunted bones, not necessarily skulls, but other bones. Um, and not even necessarily the bones of the person that they're actually in.
Yeah,
That's quite, again, going back to the whole, it's a natural vessel to hold
bone
human
magic.
spirit. So quite easy.
I don't think bone magic is actually something that gets talked about because most people think bone magic,
No.
they think reading the bones, but actually that's probably the most
Yeah.
boring form of bone magic. Although I suppose there's the tap in the skull, human skull, that sort of thing, that's bone magic. So I guess, yeah,
I suppose.
it doesn't
But
get
yeah, most people
discussed.
talk about necromancy, and
Yeah,
don't they? They talk about divining information from dead people,
yeah.
where actually the bones are far more interesting for other things. Um, you know, trapping all kinds of spirit in, for example, but not for asking them questions, just for powering shit. Um, That's about the only kind of necromancy I'm interested in, the silent kind.
So, for a beginner witch, magical practitioner, that wants to make a haunted doll as a kind of little pet project, you know, like one of those, we should really release one of those books. Did you ever have these as a kid, the 1,000 things to do in the holidays, where it's like all these arts and crafts projects in a massive fucking book?
Should we do a witchy one?
1,000 witches, witchy things to do, you know. On
Okay.
page 804, the witchy
Yeah.
thing to do is to create a haunted doll, okay? Now, for a beginner, what would be the easiest way for an inexperienced person to create a haunted doll? Are we thinking trapping a spirit in it? Are we thinking creating an egregore? Are we thinking wait for old grandmother Matilda on her deathbed, say, "Oh, I'm just gonna hug you goodbye before you die, kiss, kiss, rip out some hair and stuff it in the doll so that it tethers." What are we thinking here? What's
Are
the
we
easiest?
talking? Well, my first question is: are we talking genuine haunted doll, or are we talking 1 to 4 meter?
I think we're talking genuine haunted, i.e., there has to be
Okay.
a sentience
Okay.
behind the doll. It needs to be kind of aware, self-aware.
Oh, okay. Then the easiest way for that is to basically take, ideally, a bone of some description. So, you know, any kind of human bone, ideally. You can do it with animal, but it's trickier. Human bone, walking through a graveyard or somewhere that's haunted, and just letting it suck its way in, because that bone will pick up somebody or something, and then use that. If you don't really care about whose bone, you know, who's in it, and you just want it generally haunted, then yeah, take a human body.
Put that bone in the doll.
Yeah.
So really, it's the bone dressed up as a doll.
Yeah.
That's the form in which you're haunting. Yeah, that does work actually quite well. I know it works ridiculously well with spirits, like skulls. Skulls are literally like fucking vacuum cleaners for dead people, honestly. If you just
but any big bone, for me, a good thigh bone, you know, a couple of spinal parts, any spinal part works well. I've never tried it with a rib, but I imagine a rib would work quite well. It's got that kind of next to the solar plexus bit.
In a doll, isn't it? I mean, a spine.
Yeah, but powdered.
Oh, I suppose, yeah.
If I was really going for it, I'd probably make a porcelain mask with it.
No, that would be cool. That would be fucking cool.
I'd actually make, you know, not even the full doll, just a porcelain mask.
Right. But it's got to be a doll, Chris, to be a haunted doll. We're not talking haunted.
Yeah, but you'd be the doll as soon as you put the mask on. Limbs and shit. Right. Am I being too figurative for you? Is that far too creative?
I don't think the rest of us goes on those sorts of websites, Chris. Human dolls.
Oh, wow. Yeah, try and make me out to be the delinquent. Yeah, well done.
We used to sell a lot of those at Love Honey.
Wow.
Anyway, we got about 10 minutes left. So what do we need to wrap up? Because I don't know whether anything we've said makes sense. And
probably not.
People join us at different parts. So is there any other questions anyone has with regards to haunted dolls? Or generally magic in general, I suppose? How can we summarize this? I suppose haunted dolls, most of them are going to be just dolls that happen to have retained some kind of energetic charge that probably aren't haunted or sentient or contain any real spirits in. Other ones are probably more than likely accidentally made.
Or just charged.
Yeah. And then the idea, probably the ones that you'll come into contact most of will probably be tulpas. Because someone made a creepy doll and everyone thinks that's fucking creepy. It must be fucking haunted because it looks so fucking creepy. Like, what is it the Lady Poison has? Is it apple-headed dolls or something?
Oh, apple-head dolls, yeah.
Yeah, apple-head dolls. They look a bit kind of creepy, don't they?
Yeah. Especially if you get the facial features right.
You got given a load of creepy dolls, didn't you?
I did, or well, almost.
Almost, right.
My nan had quite a collection of them, and I was going to take them, and then I decided I didn't want to store them.
Right. Is that because you were scared because they were haunted?
No, but they probably would be after they'd spent a little bit of time with me, and I really didn't want that.
I can just imagine, actually, the surefire
So,
way to haunt, get a bunch of. We could just set you up with a little haunted. I mean, they talked about buying haunted dolls on eBay. We'll just get a load of dolls. We'll just put them on a shelf in your room or something. And then I bet one by one they'll probably start getting haunted. You can sell them on.
no.
Yeah, even Lauren just come up with that one. Chris, why didn't you haunt them and then send them out in the world? We know there's a market for haunted dolls. I mean,
We did
I'm
talk
sure
about it, didn't we, Liam?
I mean, it's
and
like
then we were worried about the
what are those
ethics.
little ones. You get like at the checkouts, and they have a little display, and there's all those little kind of voodoo dolls. I got the little ninja one, and then there's another one, and there's all sorts of ones you can collect them. And what we could do is a Thoth Witchcraft haunted doll range. You could have one where we stick a djinn in, one where we stick a random dead person in from a cemetery, and you could make the whole collection, couldn't you? In fact, if we really wanted to go to town, we would do one of those, because they've all about the haunted magazines at the moment. Everyone's creating their own haunted magazine or witch magazine. We could do one of those ones which you have to build. Issue 1 comes with a free dead person attached to the haunted doll. Issue 2, djinn, and they can have a whole collection. They buy the magazine. It starts off at $2.99, but then when you're actually hooked and you want the collection, by issue 10, it's gone up to like 30 quid or something. And then you get a whole range of different ones. Chris, that would probably sell. We just need the dolls. There ain't no shortage of spirits out there, is there? Let's be fair. And we could just do a tulpa one or two,
Yeah, I suppose. I don't know. I can't stand dead people. They bore the shit out of me.
This is true. Julie says, y'all will be the reason we get that rule about disclosing if a house is haunted when you sell it, except for dolls. Yes, they have that. I don't think that we have that over here, but I know in certain states in America, don't they? You have to disclose whether the murder happened and whether the place is haunted, and that's quite interesting. I could just imagine when you go to Build-A-Bear. They're like, right, we've got your Build-A-Bear passport. We've done the recording. Now we just need to fill out the paperwork about it being illegal to make it haunted, or disclosure of haunted, that sort of shit. I can imagine that'd be quite amusing, wouldn't it? Lauren's bonus round to haunting a live paranormal show. Haunt a doll and donate it to a charity shop. Lauren, that is so not something that I would do and have ever done with a doll, but I've done it with other things. I like this, a haunted doll competition. And now that sounds like a Witch Wars thing, Chris. We'll have to put that on the back burner. Build-A-Bear field trip, anyone? I don't know about creating haunted dolls, but we've certainly created a bunch of monsters here. Alex says sometimes that makes house value go up for certain people. It does make it go up for certain people, yeah. It certainly makes the price go up on is it B&B? What's that thing where you go and stay in other people's houses at a discount?
Airbnb.
Airbnb, yeah, it goes up at Airbnb because they all want to go and stay in a haunted, house and that for the night, but only for the night. Yeah, interesting. So I think that is about it for this edition of the Fausty Witches. What are we going to talk about next week, Chris? Have you made any decisions? Is there any topics you like? Are we going? I don't know. Order?
We talked about the one that we're doing that we've been asked about. What kinds of witches?
That's coming out tomorrow on the podcast, isn't it?
Yeah, but do we do a Fausty version?
No. I can't stomach going through that again. I'm sorry, but I can't stomach going through that again. So 20, this was episode 26, Haunted Doll. So technically, if you're going in order, next week's would be Grandma's Cauldron.
Okay, let's do that.
You want to do that? Okay, next week's episode will be called Grandma's Cauldron. I wonder what that could be all about. I do seriously wonder. I don't actually know. There's nothing written next to it. So we'll have to make something up between now and next week. I'm sure we can do it. Grandma's Cauldron could be anything. It don't have to be dirty. But Grandma did keep a dirty cauldron. Well, Grandma did keep a dirty cauldron. As she got older, she couldn't scrub the, you know, as best as she could when she were a younger girl. You know?
God. Okay.
Why? What were you thinking, Chris? Did your grandmother have a dirty cauldron?
No, cue credits now. That's it. You've crossed the line.
But I've got the button, Chris. I've got the button. Right. Goodbye, everyone.